Well, hello, internet friends near and far. Welcome to another episode of Parks and Conversation. This is a podcast where we watch an episode of Parks and Recreation and then we talk about it. And it's been quite a ride. I mean, a real roller coaster of emotions. And this episode in particular, I mean, we just see so much wonderful stuff. And so today, I'm Jason, and every day I'm Jason, and I'm also joined by my friend Jeremy, who's joining me all the way across town. Say hello, Jeremy.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. So good. Today is one of those wonderful spring days in the Pacific Northwest where it is sunny and cold and you don't know how to dress when you leave the house. So I'm kind of grateful that we have this indoor activity of podcasting where I know exactly how to dress.
Full suit, you don't have to guess
all the time.
Right, exactly. Formal attire.
Well, I'm not like a farmer, to quote Jack Donaghy. Why are you wearing a tux? It's after 6, Lemon. I'm not a farmer. So
I just think of Jim Halpert showing like in his tuxedo.
Yes. Yeah. And this that is it's not classy enough.
It's not Charles
classy.
What is it classy?
Oh man, so good. So good. I talked to somebody this week who
Good job, man.
Thank you. There's real people out there.
Yeah.
He's interviewing for a job at a paper company. And I said, I was like, oh, you're gonna be he's gonna be in sales. I was like, oh, you'll be like Michael Scott, great salesman. And he's like, who's that? What? I was like, what? I'm like, have you not seen The Office? Like, well, I watched a few. Why? I was like, the whole thing is at a paper company.
That's a documentary about paper.
Yeah, I was like, you got to watch this. If you're going to interview, you got to at least watch some of this show because people are going to make jokes about it. So, yeah, I don't know if he did.
I would show up in the interview in a tuxedo.
Is it classy enough? This is the classiest paper company ever. So yeah, it was an interesting situation. Just
I hope he gets his job.
I do too. It would be very good for him to get the job. Generally, it's good for people to have jobs.
Yeah,
I'm not afraid to tell people that. I'm against crime. I'm not afraid for people to know that.
You heard it here first,
folks. Oh, speaking of Paul Rudd, I mean, I know we're super focused always, but for several years, Paul Rudd has been going on Conan O'Brien's show, and every time he's promoting a movie, instead of playing the clip from the movie, he plays a clip from Mac and Me, with this kid in a wheelchair going down a hill, out of control, falling off a cliff into a lake, and then Mac rescues him. And so now Conan no longer has a show, but Paul Rudd was his guest on his podcast. And he still found a way to play the Mac and Me clip on the podcast. Because he was like, yeah, I'm actually doing this Audible project with my friend. And he sets up this whole thing. And he's like, let's play a clip for a podcast. And he pulled it off. It was very funny. Anyway, so the power of podcasting. Thank you for joining this one. What episode are we on? Jeremy, we're on, what is it? Season 5, episode 9, called Ron and Diane. Which, if I'm not mistaken, no, it's Jack and Diane. Oh, I was so close. That was a John Coogan. Start again. John Cougar Mellencamp.
Nailed it.
Indiana.
First time.
Yeah. No one will ever know, except I don't really edit things. So everyone will know. So this episode.
This is a little ditty about Ron and Diane.
Is it a ditty about Ron and Diane? It's not Jack and Diane.
22 minutes. The song is Jack and Diane. I'm just saying this is a little ditty about Ron and Diane.
Life goes on.
Oh.
Life goes on. That's a different song. But you can't always get what you want. You try sometimes. You get what you need. Today's episode, we're looking at there's two major plot threads that we're following today, right, Jeremy? We've got Ron, who has been nominated for an award for Achievement in Chairs, and it's Christmas time,
just
and
just chair.
yeah, well, I made a note about that. It's Christmas time, and so Jerry is throwing a party. And so we learn about Jerry's party, we learn about his family. And so yeah, so there's two threads that we're going to follow, and in the second thread, or in the Jerry party thread, there's a sub thread about Chris's progress through his therapy, which is a growing moment for Chris. So Jeremy, which one do you want to tackle first?
Oh, I say the Christmas party.
Christmas party it is.
Yeah, it's April 1st, April Fool's Day. I'm just in the Christmas mood.
Yes. So as we are recording this, listener, it is April Fool's Day, but we are not fooling around. We're focused because it is a
That's
half
the
day.
joke. There's the joke. There you go.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
All right. So, all right. So it starts out with Donna, and the team sitting around figuring out where they're going to go to dinner. And the first suggestion is sushi. And I love Andy points out that he's allergic to sushi because every time he eats more than 80 sushis, he barfs. So his allergies are quantity based, I would say.
That's because they just keep bringing it on that conveyor belt of sushi. It just,
Right.
he probably doesn't know that you don't have to eat it all as it goes by.
Just because it's coming here does not mean you have to Garfield it.
Right.
Like, just put your mouth on the conveyor belt and just let it go right in. How many sushis do you think you could eat?
Well, I mean, without feeling sick, I could. I mean, just like California. Well, because are you talking about each individual sushi, or like a California roll set of 6 counts as one?
I'm talking about each individual roll. How many of those do you think you could eat?
I mean, if it was a contest, I could probably easily do, I don't know, 20.
20. Mm-hmm.
I don't know. If I mean, like had to, but I wouldn't do that. Like that wouldn't be comfortable.
Be comfortable. Yeah.
No, not for my tummy.
Yeah.
What? How? Like, do you eat sushi? Do you like sushi?
I like sushi. Yeah.
I don't get to eat a lot of sushi. My family is not into sushi, so
yeah. Well, I have a brother-in-law who is really into Japanese stuff because he is Japanese.
Oh yeah.
So he will. We went out to dinner one time. Our wives, my wife and his wife, they're sisters. They are sisters. They went on a trip, and so Takashi and he listens sometimes. So hi, Takashi. Takashi and his kids and me and my kids, we went to a sushi place together. It was awesome, so good. But I don't know what to order when I go to a sushi place, and so I need help. And so he ordered everything for us, and it was delicious. And like you look at the individual rolls, right? And as they put it all out there, and like the spread of things, and you're like, this does not look like enough food, but it is surprisingly filling. How like I mean, every bite has a ton of rice, so that helps. But the so like 20 seems like a lot.
And if
And
you eat a lot of the green Play-Doh, it fills you up real quick.
I call it sticky guacamole. So it's spicy too. So good. But yeah, so 20 seems like I think I would probably tap out at 20 myself. So like Andy eating 80 sushis. I love the way he talks about it. Anytime I eat 80 sushis, it's a lot. That's a lot.
Also, and sushis being the plural of sushi.
Yeah, that's
I don't know.
Yeah. 80 sushis.
Today I learned.
So Anne comes and is like, what's going on? And Tom points out that they have this thing every December called Jerry Dinner, where whenever Jerry does something stupid, they put $1 in the box, and at the end of the year, they take themselves out for a fancy dinner. And so they're at 516, and you can see Jerry in the background spilling stuff on himself. That's 517, and then he hits his head on something like up 518. And so Anne's like, that's mean. You guys are terrible. And Tom and April and Andy and Don are like, this is not like, this is just what we do. Like, it's part of our deal. And Anne suggests that they should at least invite him to dinner. And Tom, I love Tom. He's like, that's funny. You should do stand up. And Anne, as is like every person who's ever thought about doing stand up, was like, if you're kidding, you suck. But if you're serious, I actually have been thinking about it. And as somebody who has done some stand-up, like I'm not good, but I have done it. It's one of those things that everybody's like, I can do this. I can get up and I can make jokes. And it's like, it's so hard. It's so hard. And you get laughed at in not the way you want to be laughed at. And so yeah, so she
So, well, I mean,
leaves.
unless you're used to it, that's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah, I guess. If you like being mocked and ridiculed. But Anne, as her zinger as she leaves and like talking about doing stand-up, was like, hey, April, Matlock called. He wants his cardigan back. Boom, I'm out. And April is just like, who's Matlock? Because she's a young, disaffected youth. And so
I can't even see Matlock in a cardigan. Like, didn't he just wear like a white suit all the time?
I feel like he always wore a suit too. So like this is indication like Anne is terrible at knowing what Matlock wore as well as zingers and barbs. So
yeah, seems how we're talking about stand up and Matlock. What other kind of like food systems, like food that I feel like they need to embrace the food train more, the conveyor belt system.
Okay.
Like why aren't there more like foods that way, like restaurants that have different kinds of foods? Like here comes the spaghetti one, like an Italian restaurant, like small portions of spaghetti and tortellinis and pizza and I don't know why stop at just sushi.
Well, I cannot answer that question for you.
But, like hamburger, like you could like build your own hamburger, right? Like all the parts come out and you just build it like a conveyor belt.
Is that really what you want?
I just want people to.
You have to wait like 15 minutes for the next round of pickles to come out.
That's great. I would have to wait
eating this burger, but pickles are taking forever.
Yeah, well, I'm not saying it's perfect. I mean, what about like a corn dog system or something? I don't know. I'm just saying.
What's such a corn dog system? Just a conveyor belt of corn dogs?
Yeah. I'm just saying, like more corn dog, more like different kinds of corn dogs, and let's start thinking outside the box just a little bit. Like, it's right there. It's right there. We just got to put more things on it other than sushi. That's all I'm saying.
The closest thing that I can think of that is embracing this is the Brazilian steakhouse, but it is not a conveyor belt necessarily, but it is a bunch of people walking around with spits of meat. Like you're like, would you like some of this? And the correct answer is yes.
It's always yes.
Yeah. Anytime I eat 80 spits of meat, I barf. So yeah, I don't know.
Anyway, just think about it. I don't know.
I think a pizza conveyor belt system could work, like with slices. But the challenge is the heat. Right? Because we'll get into pizza theories later, I bet. But like you gotta like have a hot lamp over the conveyor belt too to keep the pizza hot.
Sure.
Or like the surface of the conveyor belt is hot, and so you just don't touch it, like the cornholer in Arrested Development.
Never touch it.
Don't ever touch that. So I don't know. Listener, if you have some ideas for food conveyor belts, send Jeremy an email. Just directly to Jeremy.
At parksandrec@gmail.com.
Parks and Conversation at gmail.com. Parks and Conversation.
Yeah, not Parks and Rec.
You can try sending emails to
I don't
Parks
answer.
I don't know. So all right. So the subplot of this situation is we also meet Ben and Chris, and Ben's like, hey, we should hang out. And Chris is finishing up his entry in his dream journal and points out that this time the giant spider got caught in my web. Progress. And he's been very busy. And Ben's been very busy since he's gotten back from DC. And he's like, well, we both have relationships. You've got Leslie. I've got Dr. Richard Nygaard, who I see 15 times a week, which is a lot. And so they decide to hang out, and they are going to go to Jerry's party is what we find out. So they cut to the crew driving to celebrate Jerry dinner, and they want to talk about all the best their favorite memories of Jerry doing dumb stuff for the year. And Tom was when he Jerry slipped on a Cinnabon and landed in a bunch of garbage. Which I don't know how that even happens. April's is when Jerry ate a bowl of glue, and Andy is when Jerry had his potato soup switched with glue by April, and Jerry didn't know. And
soups and desserts.
Yeah,
right there, like a conveyor belt of soups, just coming around, different soups.
Okay, but it's got to stay hot. I mean, that's
sure.
the thing.
I'm okay. I'm okay with the heat lamp thing, or like each section of the conveyor belt has its own like warming plate for the soup. I'm just saying, like, hey, I'll take that small bowl of chicken noodle, and then the tomato. I don't know, or a dessert one. That's even better. It's just a dessert place with cookies and cupcakes and all sorts of sweet treats.
Yeah. Okay.
Keep going.
Okay, I can get on board with that. As they are talking about how they bully Jerry, Donna realizes that this is mean, and that they need to go pick up Jerry, and nobody wants to. But since they're going over to Jerry's house, Andy asks if they can stop at their place real quick because he forgot to put on deodorant and a jacket and one of his socks, and he's got to poop, but he can do that anywhere. So they go to Jerry's house and they see that there is a party at the Gergich's house. He's having a Christmas party, and they're like, how come he didn't invite us? And then they see Ben and Chris are going in, and Anna's going in, and Andy is like, I didn't even know that Ann knew Jerry. But in the party, Ben is there with Chris. He's like, wow, they go all out, and Chris is drinking eggnog. He's like, this is the best non-fat eggnog I've ever had. And it pans down to see there's a little label down there that says regular eggnog. And Ben tells him, like, this is actually the full fat eggnog and it won't kill you. And Chris like knows the calorie count and all that stuff. And he's like, you only live once, and he drinks it. And he's like, did you know that things with fat in them taste way better than things with no fat? and Ben's response is like, yeah, Chris, everybody knows that. So this is an awakening for Chris. And so, this party is going to be full of awakening moments for him, where he's going to embrace the life that he's living. And then the Donna, April, Andy, and Tom, they are outside looking in, and everybody looks happy and warm. And then they're like, we got to figure out a way to crash this party. And they tap the window and get Ann to come and let them in. And she's like, no, you cannot come in because you've been mean to Jerry. So if you want to come in, you have to do something nice for Jerry, and then you can come in. Donna is like, well, can I come in? Because I wanted to pick Jerry up for dinner. And so Donna gets to come in, leaving the other three outside. And they're like, whatever. But then Andy sees a Santa at the party and freaks out. And everybody's like, this is the biggest party and we don't get to be a part of it. Sadness.
I love when April tries to force her way in, but she can't because Anne basically just holds her arm.
Right.
And Anne's like, why are you so frail? Let me check your pulse. Are you iron deficient? And she calls her, it's because you have man strength, man Perkins.
Yeah. And I think this is some of the best acting Aubrey Plaza has ever done, because it looks like she's really trying. And so like her effort is like all in her face. It's like she's really trying to get in past Anne and she can't do it. So yeah, very, very good. So in the party, Chris introduces Ben to Jerry's wife, Gail. And we've heard a lot about Gail. And this is the first time we actually get to meet Gail in the whole series. Gail is played by Christy Brinkley, who is a very beautiful woman, right? I mean, people would agree with this, which is shocking to Ben because he knows Jerry, who is not a conventionally handsome man. And so Ben throughout this whole episode is trying to figure out what's going on with Jerry's family. And
he's in little Sebastian mind space at this point. Like he's just, there's a disconnect. He just can't, something's broken.
Yeah, there's a glitch in the matrix. And so Chris is talking with Gail's like, hope this isn't weird. I dated your daughter. And Gail's like, no problem. And then she finds a little gray hair on Chris's shirt and says, points it out, calls him a silver fox. And Chris does not evaporate in sadness. And Ben points this out. You don't feel like your body is in decay or death is inevitable. And Chris is like, no, it's fine. And so this is different. This is something that's happening in Chris. So all these hours with Dr. Richard Nygaard seem to be helping. That's he caught the spider in his web this time in his dream. He's not freaking out about the eggnog. He's not freaking out about the gray hair. Things are coming together. And then Jerry calls everybody over for a carol sing along and points out that Millie's not going to be there, but their other two daughters, Miriam and Gladys, are going to help. And again, Ben looks at Miriam and Gladys and Millicent, Miriam and Gladys. These are like old lady names, but they're like, again, very attractive young women. And Ben is just completely shocked by the attraction in the attractiveness of Jerry's family. He's so confused. And so they start singing. And one of the fun little facts here is if you watch, you can see there's different camera angles around Jerry. He is sitting at the piano, but his hands are not moving at all. So, so that's a fun little detail to watch for next time. So they're outside and the crew's outside trying to figure out like what's going on. And then Tom realizes it's the Jerry filter. And because Jerry sends so much email and they're so annoyed by Jerry, they have been filtering all of his email to go right to junk mail. And so Tom opens up his junk mail and there it is, his invitation. And April is scrolling through, is like, there's so many nice messages in here. Congratulations on your wedding. I'm rooting for you. Tom gets a happy birthday message and Andy is looking at his phone too. And he just says, I just tied my high score on Snake. So Andy's fully engaged.
Oh my goodness. My youngest Casey just found a game very similar to Snake, and we were doing something and she's telling me, she's like, Dad, I'm playing this game. It is amazing. It's on their e-learning thing. And she's like, yeah, you're like this snake and you go around, you eat fruit, whatever reason that is. I don't know. But every time you do, because snakes don't eat fruit, and every time you do, you get a little bit longer, but you can go off the sides. But if you hit yourself, you die. It is the coolest game ever. I was like, let me tell you about the 90s, Case.
Yeah.
And then she fell asleep. Let me tell you
about the fact that this was the only game on our phone for a long time.
Yeah, we went from having like Nintendos and Segas to Snake. It seemed like there was a point in our lives where it's like we had every video game we could imagine. And then it's like now Snake is the most exciting thing you're going to play.
Because you can play it while you're waiting in line at the supermarket.
Right.
Now, like I have access to all these awesome games that I could play on my phone. And I still only play 2 games where I slide tiles into different number tiles into each other and where I try to connect little dots to each other. Those are my 2 games.
Numbers and dots back in kindergarten. Perfect.
Yeah, exactly. It's an educational game. I'm learning factors. So last night Judah and I were watching a TV show that is recently released on Disney Plus, and there's a character who has a secret phone, and he takes it out, and I just like, Judah, I had that phone, and it was the coolest. It was a Razor. It's like, that's so awesome. It was such a great phone, and I broke it. I broke it like just right in half one time.
Out of anger?
Out of stupidity. No, I wasn't even angry. It just like I put it in my pocket without folding it, and then like it broke. And so it was dumb, very dumb. But that's neither here or there because we are at Jerry's party, and we see Ben comes over and Jerry or Chris is looking at a picture of Millicent, and he's trying to distract him away from that. And Chris is like, "Man, she was great. I wish her the best." And Ben points out, like, it seems like this is really working. This therapy is working. And he's like, well, this is just a picture. And then we hear off camera Gail saying, Millie. And so she's here. But Chris's reaction to this moment is great because it's like focused on his face, and he just like goes deadpan, which is some really good. Like he's feeling good, he's feeling great, but now his feelings have to actually transition into application in a real life scenario where his ex-girlfriend is now at a party he was not expecting her to be at, and he has to deal with all of this. It's so good. So good. uh Rob Lowe is a great Chris Traeger. So and then we find that Chris and Millie are talking, and Millie had brought her fiance Carl. And Chris asks, like, how did you meet? And it's like, well, he was the really cute whitewater rafting guide that all the girls liked. I was the really cute whitewater rafting that all the guys liked, and so we met each other, and then we got together. And Chris is like, wow, that's a heartwarming tale. I feel like my heart was whitewater rafting. And so he walks away, and he does say one little tip: there is fat in the eggnog. And so Ben's like, how'd it go?
You're looking out, Chris.
Yeah. And he's like, I'm great. Therapy has taught me I need to face my fears, even when my fears are engaged to a man with a chiseled jawline of a young me. And then Chris points out, like, hey man, you've been a great friend to me. Like this, thank you so much for coming and looking out for me tonight. And then Ben says, hey, so Jerry and Gail, I thought about it a lot. And Chris just shuts it down. It's like, there's no logical explanation. There is no logical explanation for how they are together. And then a little bit later, the Anne comes to the door again to let the guys in. And comes out, and she's again trying to be a comedian. She's like, you ready to be nice to Jerry? Because it's so cold out here. It reminds me of my wife's lasagna. And April's like, I actually like that one. So, and so then Jerry comes. He's like, oh, I didn't know you guys were coming. I never got your RSVP. And they're like, hey, we got you a gift. And they decided to take all their Jerry money and give it to Jerry to pay for his hospital bills, as Annie pointed out, since you almost farted yourself to death. So, yeah, so they give Jerry the money, and they get to come in, and Jerry's standing outside on the porch, and Andy closes the door and locks Jerry out of his own party. So, perfect summary of Jerry's life there at the end. So, yeah, anything stand out to you in that? Anything we miss in that part of the story?
No, I think you pretty much nailed it all. That's okay. Yeah, it's a great ending to that whole thing with just him. He's got a perfect life, and he's still on the outside.
Yes. Yeah, that sounds about right. I just really liked Chris and the journey that he's going on here. Like, yes, he has been seeing Dr. Richard Nygaard for way too many hours a week, but it does seem to be helping him figure out his actual identity in this life, which is good for him. Good for you, Chris.
And I like that they didn't, like, while they kept it light, they didn't, I felt like they didn't really, stigmatize mental health as like, he sought help. I mean, in as much as it's like, yeah, sometimes it can take a long time, but I also think it's good that they brought it up, like, hey, there's depression and you should go see someone. And they kind of overplayed it, because if Chris is going to do anything, he's going to do it to the 10th degree, right? Mm-hmm. And so he sees them 15 times a week. But it helps. It worked for Chris. And I think, instead of just like going, oh, I'm better now, it wasn't that big of a deal. It shows like with the hard work, and then this is kind of the payoff. So we can kind of move on from him being perpetually crippled by every small thing that goes wrong in his life, and moving on. So yeah, I did. You're right. I like the storyline. It was good for Chris, and for the whole, like, the mental health conversation too, which this was 2011, I think, when this one came out, 2012. So
2012.
Yeah, I feel like it was a long time. It felt like, before everything was like all about mental health and everything. So yeah. Ahead of its time.
Parks and Rec, if anything, is ahead of its time. There's even a time travel episode where they go to the future.
Which is in the future for us.
It's in the past for us now, though.
But we will talk about it in the future, which could be in the past for somebody else when they listen to it. Man, this is getting crazy.
Podcast scene is fun. That's why we talk about the day that we are recording. Doesn't matter.
Or the weather, right?
But we do it anyway, because We got to figure out how to start talking to each other. These are social norms.
It is. Yeah. You're in the same weather as me.
You live 10 minutes away from me. What's the weather like over there?
What time is it?
Yeah. Well, it does feel like different time zones between our two towns. So, all right, let's take a break here because we have an email.
Okay. See ya.
Don't go.
Oh.
Don't go.
I'm back.
This is from listener Chrissy. A couple weeks ago, I asked people to write in about counter pizza to talk some sense into you, and I am sorely disappointed that Christy's response is not doing that.
Christy, I just need you to know my hand is in a fist and it's already up in the air right now. I'm very excited.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, good. So let me just talk to you here. I'll be Christy. I hesitated to respond to this because of Jeremy's incorrect opinion about musicals during the whole soundtracks are a mixtape from the director conversation. Apparently your podcast beef is with your listeners. But
they're on to us.
Yeah, we're just trying to antagonize you. He is kind of with Jeremy. She is kind of with Jeremy on the issue of leftover pizza. When in college, as many of us do, I ate a lot of leftover pizza. And it may be iffy, but I'd eat it if it was on the counter or more realistically, the coffee table overnight. But I'd put it in the fridge if there was still more to enjoy. See, so she's happy to eat it overnight, but then she would put it in the fridge because it's, in quotes, dry, meaning bread, cheese, vegetables, and cured meats. It seems like the rules about food safety that would apply to meats or things made with other types of dairy products wouldn't apply. There doesn't seem to be enough moisture for bacteria to grow. I'm sure it happens, but it seems rare that people get food poisoning from cured meats, stale bread, and melted and re-hardened cheese. Which, does that sound good?
Yes.
And so, yeah, so Christy is also somebody that we should be praying for, that she doesn't get a bacteria-borne illness from her counter or coffee table pizza. So
yeah, I never thought about the coffee table pizza. I think that takes it to a level of classiness I had never really thought of. Counter, it's like, well, I mean, coffee table, like we get these really cool, big, thick coffee table books because you're fancy. And why not coffee table pizza? Yeah. Like I'm into this thing, 500 pages worth, So,
you know what I would love to see? Somebody
a coffee table book about pizza? Yes.
No. Somebody actually reading a coffee table book. Because
about coffee tables.
Yeah, nobody actually sits down and reads those. Those are simply there to look impressive to people. It's like, look how big this book is. Yeah, I have big books.
And you cannot lie.
No, and it's so, yeah. So the same, like, who are you trying to impress with your coffee table pizza? Who are you trying to say, wow, this guy, he's got his life together?
Anybody who comes in, and they're more than welcome to it. It's a charcuterie board of pizza. It's right there. It's right there for you. It's just hospitable hospitality, Jason.
See, I couldn't do that because I have two dogs, and so the coffee table is too low. The dogs would eat the pizza, so I could, if I have pizza, it has to be on a full heighted table or a counter. And yeah. So, listener,
it's okay. Help. You'll get there.
Please help. Email us. We're still in this raging debate about counter pizza.
I think we won. I think we're okay. I think that's pretty much it.
Okay. So listener, help me, please. Email us, parksandconversation@gmail.com. And we would love to hear from you. Also, tell your friends about this show. Maybe not this episode, but the show in general. And let them know, like, hey, I love Parks and Rec, and I care about you as a person. And I want you to enjoy two people talking about Parks and Rec, as well as other things like counter pizza or what other kinds of food should be on a conveyor belt. But you can include that in your email as well. So please tell people. Rate our show on the things as well. They talk about rating things on iTunes or Spotify or Amazon podcasts or Bleeble Blorp or wherever. Do that. That'd be cool. You ready to
send
talk
a
about
woof.
the next?
Whatever.
Send a woof. Yeah, send a woof, and so fax us your reviews. Uh, so uh, let's talk about the second plot line here of this episode. It's a fun one
Let's do it.
because Ron. It's a Christmas themed episode, and so we find out that Ron is being Christmased by Leslie, which is half Christmas, half congratulations, because she found out that Ron has been nominated for an award with Indiana Fine Woodworking Association. Um, and Ron is surprised that Leslie knew about this. Um, but she had a Google alert for Ron Swanson that finally paid off. And so, yeah, so Ron goes to Talking Heads like, I recently made a chair, thought it was a good chair. I submitted it, and they felt it merited consideration for an award. And he like gets a little giddy. He's like, it's been a real whirlwind. And so and then cuts back to Leslie and Ron talking. He's like, I'm actually really honored by this, and this is the only event I've ever wanted to go to. So Leslie invites herself to go, and Ron's like, why are you going? And it's like, well, because I'm your emotional guardian. It's my duty to support you. And Ron's like, well, I'm going to bring Diane. And Leslie's just like, well, that's great. I finally get to meet her. This is going to be wonderful. And then she sings a Christmas carol. Jingle bells, jingle yay, jingle good for you. And then Ron kicks her out of the office. So they are going to this event, and it's going to be really something. And so Ron and Leslie or Ron and Diane go in, and Ron's like, welcome to Indiana Fine Woodworking Awards, or as I like to call it, heaven. And Leslie comes in and is like, and Ron introduces Leslie, and Leslie instantly begins to talk and want to get to know her. And Leslie's like, Ron's told me so much about you, and in the past, he has told me that your name is Diane and that you exist. And so I need to know more about you. Is basically the vibe. And Diane's like, wow, I don't even know Ron's middle name, and Leslie does, which it is Ulysses, but like that is a red flag for Diane here. Like that will come up later because Ron and Leslie have a very, very close relationship, and Diane is a little uneasy about that. And so, um, while this is starting up here, Ron points out that that's Christian Bexford over there, the modern master of the shaker style, and it's like I can't believe he's right there. And Diane's like, go say hi. He's like, I'm sure he gets swamped with attention all the time. The guy's just standing there by himself, like holding a drink, just looking around, and he's like, he gets swamped with attention all the time. So, but then he sees a
He's a
Jack
real
playing there.
he's a
What?
real woodworker.
I believe it. I absolutely believe that.
Yeah. And he makes really beautiful wood products.
Yeah.
Woodwork.
He doesn't make the trees.
No.
Yeah. But Ron sees a Jack plane that he needs to go check out. And so Leslie and Diane are getting to know each other, and she wants to know 5 biggest hopes, dreams, fears, and regrets. And then cut back to them, and Leslie, they're talking about Hogwarts. And what house would you have been, Diane? And she said, I want to say Gryffindor, but I'd have to go with Hufflepuff. And then Leslie says, I would be Gryffindor, and I'd be Seeker on the Quidditch team, which is the role Harry Potter had. So then they come up, and Ron's there by the chairs, and he's like, Diane, that's my chair. And Diane's like, wow, it's beautiful. Yours is going to win. And Leslie leans over, which one is Ron's? And Diane's like, I don't know. So they're all the same. And so, yeah, so Leslie is like really enjoying getting to know Diane, and she approves of him. And like next time we see them, Leslie comes up with both arms raised, 2 thumbs up, and he's like, you've got my approval for Diane. And Ron is so great, he's like, I don't need your approval. Which is true. But
you have it.
Yeah, and like you have it. She's ordering you your favorite drink. She's here at the stupid, boring woodworking stuff. And all the people look at her, and it's like, look, guys, it's not the Super Bowl. So so Ron is excited. Or Leslie's excited for Ron, and Ron smiles a little bit here. Because things are coming together for Ron. He's nominated for an award. He's got a really great companion, and then Tammy 2 shows up, and Yeah, Tammy is terrible, and I hate her for so many reasons. Um, and she just has so many double entendres throughout this episode about woodworking that can't say this because I do want this to be a family friendly show. So yeah, Tammy's here. And so Leslie is going to try to.
Once again, though, played by Megan Mullally, who is Nick Offerman's wife in real life.
Yes. Yeah.
As
This is
gross
true.
as she is to Ron. And I know, yeah, it's just, for some reason, it kind of was like, oh, that's, and then you're like, at least she's, towards her husband.
And everybody else in the room.
That's true. I know. But it's just for them. It's just for them.
Ugh, yuck. Yeah, it's not great. And Ron notices that she's here, and so this
I like
is
how he like sniffs the air, like,
yeah,
she's here.
Yeah, and Diane is there, and Ron introduces Diane to Tammy, and says, "Diane, this is a piece of human garbage named Tammy, who is also my ex-wife." And the twice ex-wife, and Leslie points out twice divorced, everything's done, they're totally done, and she's going to try to interfere for to keep Tammy away from Diane and Ron, because she's his emotional guardian. She wants to protect him.
One of my favorite jokes in this episode is Leslie says, "Shouldn't you be at the library forcing people to borrow books?" Because Leslie, you and I both know the library closes at 3 p.m.
Yeah, forcing people to borrow books. Yeah, that's a pretty good moment there, because the library does close at weird hours. Yeah. So so Leslie is going to try to protect Ron. And then the program starts up, and the normal host for all of the things is here hosting this event.
Martin Housley.
Martin Housley, yes. I was trying to pull up the cast list. Martin Housley, and he has some great jokes. I'm your host, Martin Housley, and wow, it's going to be a great show. Knock on wood, and everybody laughs.
Oh, would I?
Yeah, and then the end is like, well, they asked me if I would host this event, and I said, would I? And he holds up a wooden eye, and everybody laughs again. So Tammy ends up sitting at their table, and this is not great situation. She's just going to annoy, and then they go to the next thing, where next award is for achievement in chairs. And Martin reads the nominees: Asa Christiana for chair, Ron Swanson for chair, H.W. Davenport for chair. And so they're all named chair. And it turns out Ron wins for chair.
Yay!
And he goes up to give a speech, and he's like, "This is the only award that I've ever cared about. And I made my first chair when I was 5, but the quality of the wood was wanting. So when I turned 9, I used my factory wages to purchase some beautiful local walnut." And then Tammy is trying to distract him with her body in the front row. And he's like, "Thank you for this. This is all good night. There it is." And he walks off. And then it cuts back to the party, or to the award show, and they're doing a memoriam. So Martin says, "Let's take a moment to remember those woodworkers who are no longer with us, and the beautiful coffins they all designed themselves."
And the guy, and the first guy's name was like, I think it was like Jeremy Sneebler.
Yes.
And then it showed his coffin on the side. It just said oak.
The details about like these kinds of things, like, it's so great. The beautiful coffins they all designed themselves. And so Diane is standing there, and Leslie comes in and is like, "Have you seen Ron? He disappeared after speech. I can't find him." And it's like, "Look, the relationship is so complex and gross. Let me handle it." And Diane's like, "I'm not worried about Tammy." And she points out, like, "I'm the middle school vice principal. Hormonal psychopaths are in my life all the time." And she's like, "Oh, great." And so, but then Diane says, it's you I'm concerned about, because you guys are so close. And I just don't have that same relationship with Ron. and Leslie's like, I'm engaged, and she's like, look, Tammy's a monster, but you are the one who is closest to Ron. And in the background, we then hear Martin say, "Okay, folks, fasten your seatbelt. It's the big one. Best desk."
Hold on.
fasten your seatbelts. And then Ron and Leslie talk, and he's like, "Where's Diane? I need her." And Ron, and she's like, she left. And she said she was threatened by our relationship. And Ron's like, "That's ridiculous. You're pro government. You never stop talking, and you have blonde hair. You're my worst nightmare." And so, but Ron finds this whole idea ridiculous, and Leslie points out, look, I know a lot about you. I know when your birthday is. And great callback here. Ron says, "So does Baskin Robbins."
It's like the one other person or place that knows his birthday.
Yeah. And then he's like, "Well, I know you secretly love artichokes and plums." And then Ron gets mad. Like, "Keep your voice down, woman." And so he's like, "Here, what do I do? Tammy's waiting for me in my car." And so Leslie's like, "Here, take my car. Go get Diane. I will handle Tammy." And Ron warns her that she's an eye gouger, so watch out. And so Tammy is waiting for Ron in Ron's car, and Leslie gets in, and they do this whole chase. Oh, I knocked my microphone. They do this whole chase thing around the car. They're driving, and she throws. Leslie ends up coming up to a dumpster and throwing the keys in the dumpster, and Tammy goes in after the keys, and Leslie gets in after that, and they fight and they wrestle. And then Tammy gets the keys and goes and tries to start the car, and Leslie then jumps in the window, and they're running all over the place. And so while that's all happening, Diane and Ron have reunited, and they are at Cozy's bar, which I believe is in Eagleton. And Diane's like, "Look, you guys are just really close, and I just don't know if we're ever going to get to that point." And Ron's like, "Right now, Leslie is protecting us from Tammy because she's a loyal friend, and she's very important. But I would sooner visit Europe than have any romantic relationship between me and Leslie. Although, if you'd like to visit Europe, I'd be willing to risk it." And so, like, that's a huge commitment for Ron to say, "I'd be willing to go to Europe for you."
But not France.
No. But then they're at Cozy's, and Ron's like, "I brought you here because I want you to show you something that almost no one knows about. Certainly not Tammy. Not even Leslie knows this." And on the stage, there's a man introducing the music for the evening, and it is Duke Silver. And Tammy was looking at the stage, and while she's looking at the stage, Ron walks away and goes up there and then introduces Duke Silver. And I mean, Ron as Duke Silver is one of the creepiest creepy. Says, "A mighty fine holiday evening to you all. It might be cold outside, but it's about to get warm all up in my jazz." Oh, barf. So then he dedicates "Hark the Herald" to Diane, which is a weird song to dedicate to somebody. But Diane, and then people come up to start talking to Diane, saying how lucky she is to be with Duke. But then the other one says, "I'm going to kill you." So that's where that's at. So Ron is like, "You know what? I'm going to retire from." Leslie's saying, "I'm going to retire from Ron's emotional guardian. That's Diane's job, and I'm here to just try to make sure that his crazy ex-wife doesn't ruin his life." And she's like, "But I think I'm safe." They're back in the meeting hall, and Tammy shows up, grabs an axe, and starts chasing Leslie. Credit scene: Ron and Diane are responding to Officer Scroggle, who pulled over Tammy in Ron's car. And so Ron's like, "Okay, thank you. Did you see any sign of a passenger?" And then knocking on the trunk, Ron opens it, and there's Leslie. End of episode. So, yeah, good time. We get to see some differentiation between Ron and Leslie. Like they're going to be great friends, but like Ron is committing himself to Diane, and like, yeah, it's good. Leslie's opening up her control over Ron's life to say, I don't need to control you. I don't need to protect you. You're a grown up and you got Diane in your life. So yeah, good growing moments for several characters.
I agree with you.
Good.
Those words that you said.
Excellent. Any other trivia or notes about this episode that we need to highlight?
Nothing that really stood out. It was everything was pretty straightforward with this one.
All right.
I think it got an 8.9 on IMDb. Which I thought that's pretty good. It was a fun episode. I like this episode.
Yeah. Here's something that we should note. Chrissy Brinkley is 9 years and 2 days older than Jim O'Heir, who plays Jerry.
Oh wow!
Yeah. So that
I didn't know he was that young.
Yeah, he is a younger person than you think. So that I thought was an interesting point of reference. And then this is a spoiler in the trivia section on IMDb. Tom tells Anne that she should be a stand-up comedian. Aziz Ansari is a stand-up comedian in real life.
No.
Yeah, spoiler.
Man,
so, I don't know.
Don't go on Netflix.
I also looked at IMDb is amazing. And I looked at the connections thing, and it says Anne says Matlock called. He wants your cardigan back. That's the connection. Matlock is also a TV show. That's it. Matlock.
Cultural reference here.
Also on television. So, yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Well, that's next week. That's this episode, right? We're done.
Yeah, that is this episode. Next week is the two parties.
The two parties. But I have some good news, bad news. Good news is next week I'm out of town.
Yay! Oh, that's the bad news.
No, that's the good news.
Oh, the good news.
The bad news is we are still going to make another episode a week later. Wait.
Good. Wait, no.
No. So there won't be an episode next week. There will be one the following week. We'll be back.
Okay.
But we're just not going to be able to record in our normal schedule.
So this won't matter to people 6 months from now.
No. But if you're week to week, like our tens of listeners, then just heads up. Don't panic. Don't fret. We shall return to converse about parks. So that's that.
Well, have fun doing whatever you're doing. Not podcasting.
I won't be podcasting, but I will probably be sitting in the rain at the ocean. So going to the ocean.
Sounds fun. Just go into the ocean.
Yep, there it is.
All right.
It's huge.
Well, people, you see Jason's priorities. So I'll be here, just waiting. I'll just sit here till he gets back.
Okay. All right. Well, then,
I'm talking in 2 weeks. Hope somebody brings me some food.
Yeah, you don't even have to cook it. You can just leave it out there.
Yeah, just give me some counter pizza. Well, bye.
Bye.
See ya.